Many of us will be very familiar with a story that's been on the headlines, and one of Mary Wambui and Joseph Kori. Now, according to what we know, Mary Wambui may have been in a love triangle where she ended up losing her life. It is not clear what happened. It is not clear who her murderers were. What we know is that she was killed. Whether it is because of the love triangle, we leave that to the investigators. However, it's not the first time that we have seen a love triangle that has ended up tragic, whether in terms of death or somebody who's been maimed or disabled because of that particular love triangle. So that's our discussion this morning. You're welcome to participate in this discussion. Maybe you have been in a relationship where you loved somebody passionately, but that love turned to anger, to to a point where maybe that anger boiled over to a point where you maybe even felt you'd not mind having them dead. Has that ever happened to you? Do let us know. Maybe you have seen a friend in that situation. We'll give you that opportunity to do that. So the phone lines are going to be open. We'd like you to share, but also you can do that via social media, and that's at KTN Morning Express, or you can also tweet. Joining me in studio, we have Moffat Kago, who's a psychologist and also a family therapist. So Moffat, karibu sana.
Thank you.
Now, this story of Mary Wambui and Joseph Kori is not a one-off. It's not a story that we've not heard before, so I don't want us to restrict it to that. But what happens that somebody who was once so in love ends up becoming the very person that can take your life away?
Thank you, Mike. I think I want to begin by saying that marriage should ideally be couples safe haven. But marriage, again, you realize that there are issues. Like we said last time, it exposes our problems, because marriage in itself doesn't have problems, but it exposes people. Two people who have problems. And you realize that the moment a certain aspect or angle of a person is revealed, you realize that the issue of communication comes in. The issue of conflict resolution comes in. And if somebody is coming from a background whereby they do not know how to go about that, then you realize that it can turn tragic. Sometimes when people are not able to communicate and are putting some issues, underlying issues, and they continue to pile up, and they are not talking about them, then it reaches a point and they erupt. And once they erupt, that is at that point you realize that people will begin to turn against each other. And like what we are seeing and what we saw yesterday, which is very unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate. But what is the process? I guess love is a very strong emotion. It's a very strong feeling. And again, maybe we need to define what love is, because there are some who say love is not a feeling, it's a commitment.
Yep.
Love, what exactly is love? Because these are two people who've come together. And when we look at some of the stories that we have seen, whether it's Mary Wambui or any other story, you will find a similar thread running through. And that similar thread is one of passion, one of commitment, one of saying, this is the person who have put my life and said, let them be my partner for life. Then something happens along the way.
We normally say that love is a strong affection towards a person. But you realize that when it comes to intimate relationship, there's a lot of investment that is done inside that particular relationship. And once people continue to invest their emotions, continue to invest their feelings, continue to invest their whole being, continue to invest their dreams, continue to invest everything that pertains to their lives, then you realize that every moment somebody thinks that they are going to lose all that they have invested in a person, and they realize that they do not even have what it takes, maybe to express their feelings, because you realize that in African culture, it becomes very difficult for us because we do not know how to pick a positive message from a negative message. And therefore, when they are telling us what they are feeling, instead of listening to that pain, we very fast jump into defense mode, and we begin to fight back. And the reason why things can escalate to this level is because somebody does not want to listen to somebody else's pain. And this other person is really counting a lot of losses because of probably what they have invested together in terms of emotions, feelings, and everything that pertains to a person. Yes.
Okay. Now, you did mention and you talked about marriage or a relationship where two people are coming together, loving each other. Is supposed, ideally, is supposed to be a safe haven.
Yes.
But that doesn't always happen. But I've also had people talk about toxic love. You know,
Yes.
love that is almost corrosive.
Yes.
It is love that demands. It is love that is very selfish. It is love that almost literally wants last drop of blood from the other person. Tell us a little bit more about toxic love.
I would begin by, I would want to say, Mike, that when two people come together, we many times forget that though we are one, because even the Bible says, and the two shall become one. We are one, yet separate. And that is another mystery about love. One, yet separate. And the moment we are not able to mark the boundaries, because when we talk about separateness and individuality, you realize that there is that separateness and boundaries which need to be respected. And the moment somebody fails to respect, you know, a spouse's boundaries, you know, their likes, their dislikes, what makes them happy, what makes them angry, and we continue to trespass in that, then it is possible that that love is going to turn toxic. Because somebody feels choked and somebody feels that they are not given space. And I normally say that 1 + 1, according to family therapy, 1 + 1 is not I, it is we. Because we have agreed to share our life together. We have agreed to share our dreams. We have agreed to share our love and affection together, invest emotions together. And therefore, this is a two-way traffic. You know, people have come in and they have invested, and nobody should feel as if they have invested more than the other person. Because when you loved each other and when you jumped into this particular relationship, there is that which drew you together. And therefore, you realize that the issue of respecting who a person is, the moment we come to a point of respecting, when a couple is able to respect who their spouses are and love them for who they are, then you realize that the issue of respect, the issue of submission will not be an uphill task. They will be able to respect each other because they know this is how my wife is, this is how my husband is. And therefore they are able to work together.
Are there ways of identifying that love is becoming toxic to a point where one can highlight and say, at this point, I'm becoming too obsessed or too obsessive with my partner, or vice versa?
Yes, there is a way. Gottman talks about something we call connection beads. Connection beads is when a wife comes home or a husband comes home and they want to initiate a discussion. And they can probably initiate by saying, how was your day? And you realize there are some who will not even respond, and they will say it is good, and they're done. They leave it at that, which we call cliché kind of communication. They leave it at that and they do not move on. The following day, you make another connection bid. What can I cook for you today, sweetheart? And they will say, whatever.
Whatever you want to
Whatever you want to prepare for me. Then, those are some of the initial signs to tell you that things are not okay. Then it graduates to a point whereby you cannot even resonate intellectually. You cannot sit down and agree on anything. You begin to differ, and every time you communicate or you say something, the other person, it lands in their ears as if it is an insult, and they begin to fight back. Then, at that particular point is when we say it is good for a couple to seek help.
Okay, and what sort of help are we talking about here? Is it help for them to just sit down and talk? Because it looks like communication barriers have been broken.
Yes. First of all, if they are able to sit down and agree, that would be so good. But you realize there are some situations whereby love or a couple becomes gridlocked. They cannot move, and they begin to do what we call stonewalling. They cannot make any headway. And at that particular point, it's okay for them to seek help, maybe from a counselor, from a third party, who is able to, help them sit down and point out to some areas that probably may not be working for them, and maybe help them to focus on their deficiencies. And once they are able to focus on their deficiencies, they will be able to work out the issue that is not working.
Okay, now, are there certain things within a relationship that provoke one to get to a point where they feel they would want to completely do away with this person, to a point where they can kill? And one of those may be being betrayal. Because when we look at most of the relationships where there has either been a very major fight, where one has lost their lives, there always seems to be a third party who has gotten into the relationship either without the knowledge of one of the parties, or with the knowledge but without, of course, the approval.
Yes, there are such moments, and of course you've talked about betrayal. And even loss of trust. You know, once you are betrayed, you lose trust. And to build that trust again, it's an uphill task. But again, you realize, like we said, that families or a marriage should be a place where, you know, it's a safe haven. Now, the moment we expose our spouses, we expose our marriage to in external aggression, then you realize that you are not able to move together again. And like in the issue of betrayal, whereby you have somebody else, and this particular wife has really invested, or this man has really invested, and then you bring in somebody else from outside, then they will feel betrayed, and they will lose trust in you. And at that particular point, you realize that even that relationship will begin to become toxic, because it is very hard for anybody to build trust again. And if one party is not caring about what the other person is going through, their emotional injuries, they continue to inflict wounds on their emotions, then you realize that it can even end up somebody taking another person's life if they don't seek help.
Now, one cannot control what the other party will do.
Yes.
But you're in full control of what you will do.
That's the thing.
How does one overcome that kind of bitterness and pain? Because I'm sure if you spoke to some of those who possibly have ended up killing their spouses or loved ones, it's because they were overcome. Maybe they didn't know how to control this or abet this before it happens.
That is so true, Mike. And I always tell people that we don't have control over what others think about us. We don't have control over what lands to our ears, but we have got control over what gets to our hearts. Now, the moment somebody is not able to embrace the futilities of life, because there is something we call frustrations in life can bring with them a lot of issues. And we normally say that there is a door that should always remain open in a person. And this is a door that we call the ability to embrace or to accept the futilities of life. Now, if you are not able to accept the futilities of life because of the frustrations, and it could be within a marriage context, because somebody is doing something that you don't like or you don't want, you are feeling betrayed, you are feeling hurt, your emotions are bleeding. Now, those are frustrations. The first thing that a person will want to do is to change that particular situation. But in life, we don't always have the ability to change things that come to us and frustrations. And the moment you realize that you are not able to change, the next thing that you are supposed to do is to open that door that we call futilities of life, so that those frustrations can flow out and they can leave you in one piece. But you realize there are some people who will shut the door of change, shut the door of embracing futilities of life. The next door, and the only door that remains open, is what we call fighting or aggression. Because these frustrations, once they come inside us, they have to look for their way out.
They have to get out somehow.
They have to get out. And once there is that aggression, that is the time when people will begin to fight. They will begin to call each other names. They will begin to do all manner of things, because they have, the only door they have to exit their frustrations is this door aggression that we call aggression and fight. Yes.
Now, why is it that there are people who are more emotionally intelligent, if I can use that term, than others? And what I mean by that is there are people who, with what you're calling futilities of life, they are able to accept, conceptualize them, and possibly even move on. Others seem to hold on to those things very strongly, and that, of course, creates bitterness and anger to a point where it boils over.
If I could take you to the issue of loss and grief, because when somebody is fighting for their spouse, they are fighting because of the sense of loss. that they
the
have
same
had in
emotional
it.
path that they have.
Yes. And when people are going through loss and they are grieving, you realize that the way they go through that cycle is so different. There are some people who will grieve and get disturbed by that feeling of loss for a very long time than others. But there are others who are able to go through it. But now we have also to consider the fact of where we are coming from, our families of origin. And every time I'm speaking to families, and especially parents who are parenting their children, this is an area that I really talk about, because we really need to teach our children where we are coming from, ways of resolving conflict without losing yourself. We really need to teach them sometimes about resilience. We have some people who come from families whereby they are never resilient. Every time there is a shock, every time there is an incident in life, it bends them, it breaks them, because they do not have that tenacity of standing strong and behave like that tree that grows in the desert called the elastic tree, whereby when there is strong winds, it's able to bend, and once the winds are over, it's able to straighten up again. And therefore you realize, because of our background, family background, the people that we interact with, our environment, you realize there are some people who are not able to deal with the crisis, and there are others who are very good, maybe because of the friends that they interact with the people who are able to educate them in one way or the other.
Okay, and how do we build that resilience? How do we build that emotional intelligence? You've mentioned upbringing, but in case, maybe, because again, depending on how people are brought up, we're brought up differently. There are people who are completely disengaged from their parents or their guardians, to a point where they have no point of reference when it comes to conflict management.
Yes.
So how does one resolve that once you're grown up?
If I can talk about that within the marriage context, the last time I was here, we said that the whole essence of marriage is to make the other person become a better version of themselves. And therefore you realize that if these two people are together, and you know that there is a certain point where your partner is so weak, which we call blind spot, a blind spot whereby you've got an issue or a problem, and everybody else around you can see it except yourself. But you can't see it yourself. So you realize that couples have been called into this journey of even helping their spouses become emotionally and intellectually intimate, because intimacy has got various aspects, and intellectual intimacy is one of it. And therefore, we really need to educate each other. Then the other thing I also say, the reason why God created coexistence is so that we can learn from each other. You realize that there are some people who have issues and they have problems, yet they don't expose themselves to, seminars, trainings, interacting with the people, or a person whom you know can become your good mentor. And a person whom you know, his or her marriage is working, is doing well. We really need to expose ourselves to such people so that we can get to learn, so that they have got the opportunity to correct us, to rebuke us, to guide us in the ways that we should go.
What advice would you give to a couple who are at that point where they feel they have been betrayed? There's a lot of bitterness. Sometimes they can tell they are angry inside. They don't know how to deal with it. In fact, it gets to a point where when your spouse walks into the house or is in your presence, you literally feel like you want to walk out, yet you're still there. What advice would you give them?
Number one, Mike, I will say that those feelings are very normal. And I always like telling couples that that is a very normal feeling. It's a very normal reaction to an abnormal situation. So the first thing that you need to know is that the way I am feeling, this agitation, this sense of anger, is a very normal reaction to an abnormal situation. In the sense that, normal situation, in the sense that you are a human being, and anybody else would most likely behave the same way. Abnormal situation in the sense that what you are going through, maybe violence in your marriage, is not normal, is abnormal. And the moment you realize that this is the way you are, and sometimes if anger takes a toll on you, that you are able to do crazy things, the best thing for people to do is, first of all, once they have understood that this is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation, hold your peace. And maybe if you feel like you cannot talk with the two of you, look for a third party,
Third party.
and deliberate on the issues that are ailing you.
Do the breathing exercises work? There are those who say, breathe 10 times, breathe out, I don't know how many times, and just, let things settle a bit.
Yes, it helps, even taking a walk. Even taking a walk, and then you come home later. Because, it's really hard to change a person. And this is one thing that I like telling couples, that you cannot change a person overnight. This is a building that has taken 30 years to be constructed. But you cannot deconstruct it overnight. And therefore, I have seen people or couples who really want to push their spouses into their path. That you have to be like me, you have to do things like myself. And if they are not able to do that, the only thing they will do is to fight back. And therefore, we've got to be very patient with one another and help each other to become better versions of who they are, emotionally, psychologically, and even physically.
All right, thank you very much, Moffat Kago. We are out of time, but thank you very much for joining us this morning. He is a psychologist and family therapist, and it is where we wind up the show this morning. Thank you very much for watching Morning Express, and I take this opportunity to wish you all a fantastic and a wonderful day. Now, CBA Group and NIC Bank are holding an investor briefing in their merger. Early last month, the two commercial banks announced they will merge to cut costs and boost profits. Let us listen in to that.